Welcome back on the AM show, and after sports we get into the big stories, and we're starting off by talking about the producer price of cocoa. Now, we heard over the weekend how Mr. President, or His Excellency the President, spoke about that increment, 63.5%. He touted about 70%. But that increment from around 800 Ghana cedis per 64 kilogram bag to over 1,308 Ghana cedis. What do these dynamics mean for cocoa farmers? Is this going to help stem the tide of cocoa farmers selling their farms to galamseyers or smuggling the product? Because a few of them are mired in that as well, though we know it is usually the middlemen. Well, joining us for that conversation, and maybe just to make the point, does this suffice? This morning, early on, when we're talking about this, I had someone send a message and say for them, the farmers, they would have wanted about 3,000 Ghana cedis. So what is the reality, and where do we go from here? Joining the conversation, we have Fifi Waffle here as a Public Affairs Director at CocoaBot. He joins us. We also have Dr. Theo Champong, a political risk analyst, and we'll also hear from Obuadie Boateng Bonsu. He is Farmer General. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right. So, Dr. Theo Champong, it's good to have you. Do we have Fifi Waffle on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Great. Good to hear from you. I want to start with you. In terms of this latest increment, there has been a lot of hue and cry complaints from the farming community. And as I mentioned today, some people sent in reactions, farmers saying, look, they could have done much better. But some would also say half a loaf is better than nothing. From where you sit, what does this mean, this 63.5% increment?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I have also had the experience.
Mr. Waffle, my sincere apologies. If you could just speak up a bit for me, I'd be grateful.
All right, is it better?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So I have had a first-hand information of the reaction of farmers to this announcement. I was in Japan when the president announced the new price. And it was a spontaneous reaction from the farmers, who immediately, when the president announced the price, just started dancing, screaming, showing all sort of excitement, reaction. They actually stopped the president's presentation for close to 10 minutes, just showing their excitement to the new price. So, for me, I believe that the reaction shown by the farmers, and I've heard farmers beyond what I saw in Tepa, who are so grateful and appreciative of the new price that has been put. On top of that, prior to the announcement of this new cocoa price, we had a statement from the civil society platform on cocoa, who had a certain expectation. The expectation they had, based on all factors taken into consideration, and the price that was announced last Saturday, there's no much difference. It seems to all singing from the same hymn book. On top of that, those who have raised issues or expressed the concern that, well, probably the price would have been way higher, the basis of that argument, I think that's a bit problematic, to put it bluntly. They say that, oh, well, the world market price of cocoa today is 3,200, some say 3,600. And they actually make reference to the fact that it's a spot price. Benjamin, with your indulgence, I would like to explain this. When we say spot price, basically it refers to the fact that today cocoa has cocoa. You go to the market, a trader decides to bid for the product, immediately you sign a contract, you are required to export the cocoa bean. What we do here in Ghana is not to do spot largely. It's only when we have been able to certify our contract, that is when we do the spot sale. Because of the syndication process, from 1992 up to date, we do forward sales. And we actually started selling October last year. We sold up to date. And the new price we are seeing on the market started after April. So this significant increase cannot be the basis to say that because on a day the price is X, so you use X as a basis of determining the producer price. It is also important to say that you will not be able to sell 800,000 metric tons of cocoa in a day. You can obviously do that over a longer period of time. So what we use is the average. In determining the average, it is also important to make the point that in Ghana, it doesn't matter whether it's the light crop beans or the male crop beans, is it the type C or the ability level. The price of cocoa when determined at the beginning of the season is used for the purchase of cocoa throughout the year. So the 1,308 Ghana cedis will be the price we use to buy cocoa for both the main crop and the light crop. The light crop beans is discounted by 20%. The figure people quote, or the figure people see on the internet and use as a basis, is for main crop beans. So for the light crop beans, you don't get the same amount of money. That is also the So when cocoa is determining, or when the producer price is determining the producer price, the average they take into consideration the discount that is also applied on the light crop beans. And I believe that all said and done, the reaction we have seen from the farmers is a good one. The good side of it is also the fact that now we'll also see the price increasing beyond what we have even used as a basis of determining the price this time now. Sales for 2024-2025 has begun, and the price we see today will form the basis of determining the next year's producer price. So obviously, going forward, the future looks brighter for us as a producing country. So we believe that this is a good price. The reaction shows, and we believe that it insulates the farmers from the possibility of giving out their farms or other land uses as we've experienced in our country for some time.
Right. Just a quick point before I move on to my other guests for their preliminary comments. We heard Mr. President talk about the fact that, in fact, you're talking about prices ranging between, correct me if I'm wrong, $2,400 to $2,600 or $2,200 to $2,400?
Well, the new price or the average that was used was 2,600.
2,600. Because I have here the Daily Graphic, which quotes Mr. President saying that, in fact, there's a low international price now. I do not know whether you will corroborate that. He added that the increment was also equivalent to $1,821 or 70.5% of gross free on board price per ton of cocoa beans. And he suggests that until recently, the price of the commodity on the international market had remained relatively low and made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. But now it's picked up, right?
Precisely so.
Okay. I'll come back to...
I asked the president, and what the president said was in reference to what the price has been since 2017, and the fact that now we've seen the price increasing. And he made a point that the $1,821 paid the farmer this time now, in terms of dollar value, is the highest we have seen. That's the point the president was making, that the $1,821 is the highest we've seen. Of course, cocoa prices have gone beyond 2,600 average. But in terms how much is paid to the cocoa farmer, it has never happened in the history of our country that a dollar equivalent of 1,821 has been paid to a farmer before.
Thanks for that clarity. When the president also says that it's the highest to be paid to cocoa farmers across West Africa in over 50 years, can you corroborate that? Because there are those who have suggested that that is not the case. Can you corroborate that?
Well, average prices over the West African average, 1,821 at the time of determining the price is the highest we have seen in 50 years.
Quote, Mr. President says, it is the highest to be paid to cocoa farmers across West Africa, not Ghana, West Africa, in over 50 years. That's what I want clarity on.
Yes, in terms of price at the time of determining it, it's the highest we have seen in West African average.
All right. Please hold for me, Mr. Waffle. Just hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Theo Champong. Doc, what do you make of this latest increment? It's a shot in the arm for cocoa farmers, right? Hello, Dr. Theo Champong.
Yes, good morning. I hope you can hear me. I was just checking my sound and I wasn't too sure. Hopefully you can hear me now.
I can. Go ahead.
No, I think it's a positive development because again, I mean, let's look at the context and the backdrop that the production has been slowing down, and even some of the reports that we had read indicated. So from like a couple of the portals, Bloomberg and others, that Ghana may not be able to meet the cocoa purchases for this season. Fifi talks about the issues of smuggling and galamsey and the like, and the fact that the farmers generally, before this price increment, wanted a little bit more to reflect the cost of living and other challenges that they were facing. So the proposal to increase the price, in my view, is welcome and it's a good thing. The thing though then becomes a question of how much could the government have, gone up by. So again, let's just do some numbers here. If we assume that the price as Cocoa Board had first sold its cocoa on the market was even $2,600, $2,700 per ton, and you're paying farmers now, I believe, 1,280 cedis. Please correct me if I'm mistaken. In terms of the value add, it's just around 40% or so of the price that is being passed on to farmers. Now, when you juxtapose that against the inflationary environment and the cost of living and the rise in input prices and all of that, then you can begin to see why the argument for maybe pushing for 2,000 or so Ghana cedis per ton could have been sustained. But of
so
course,
I've heard some push for 3,000 Ghana cedis per ton.
I think 3,000 would have been difficult, but certainly right. I think around the 20,000 Ghana cedi mark would have been a much more fairer reflection of the price being passed on to the farmers. But we need to now also consider the financial state of the country, including even at Cocoa Board itself. They just recently restructured a couple of their bonds and the debt and all of that. So it's a bit of a trade-off that the government had to make. But the point really is that when you work that cost pass through to the farmer in relative terms, they are still worse off than they were even a couple of years ago when you account for inflation and you account for cost of living.
Interesting thoughts that you've shared. You feel that if you look at the dynamics, looking at inflation and other matters, then it means they're actually worse off now, even with this increment, than they were just a few years ago comparatively. Let's bring in it's good to hear from those who are in the thick of things. Farmer General Obuadie Nana Boateng Bonsu. He is president, Concerned Farmers Association. Nana, a very good morning to you, sir. Obuadie Nana Boateng Bonsu. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Nana, for joining the conversation. I'm sure you've listened to everything that has happened. Fifi Waffle on the end of Cocoa Board and Dr. Theo Champong saying that actually from where he sits, if you look at the dynamics of inflation and other factors, it means even with this increment, you are worse off than years back. From where you sit, how did you greet this announcement? What does it mean to you?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, and then good morning to your viewers, and then all the cocoa farmers across the country for working very hard to sustain this country from falling. There was something that I want to ask Cocoa Board, whether we have cocoa farmers in this country, and whether we have NGOs which represent cocoa farmers in this country. This question goes to my good brother, Honorable whether we have that. Because during the new price that they went and launched or so, none of the, if I say none, because I know the majority of the LGUs were not invited to the program, which I think it is disrespectful on the side of COCOBOT to do that. Because at the end of the day, it is not the COCOBOT that they are doing the work. It is we, the farmers, that we are doing the work. So if there was anything concerning cocoa, and that is we working hard for it, and you been representing us, at least you need to give us that kind of respect for to stretch an invitation for which to come to grace the occasion. You can't mobilize or call on national just to sit around and then do this announcement for them that you've come out with a new price of cocoa. So that is all. I think what COCOBOT did, we the farmers need an apology for that. And next time they don't have to do that because they don't own any farm. It is we that own the farm. All the stress and other things that we are going through, it is we.
So quickly on that point. So you're saying that you were left out of the equation in deciding on this latest sum. It was done on your blind side, and moving forward, you want more collaboration, or COCOBOT should involve you. That's what you're saying.
Exactly, because COCOBOT, they are not doing any work. It is we that we are doing the work. We that we are on the ground. Now that they are destroying and cutting down the cocoa trees in this country, ask COCOBOT, what was their intervention? All that he told us was, it is a land tenure system. It is we, the concerned farmers, that move around, mobilize the farmers across the country, telling them that, listen, cocoa is Ghana, and Ghana is cocoa, we need to protect it. COCOBOT did nothing about it. You see, so it is very sad that we fighting for this thing, and at the end, who enjoys it? It is COCOBOT that enjoys it. What do we have? We as the cocoa farmers. Look at our road network. It is very bad. That is one. There's no good health care, even within our villages. No good schools. And when you are sending your son to the farm, they said it's a child labor. But when a doctor is sending his son to the hospital, that one is not a child labor. So I think there's something that COCOBOT needs to upgrade it, because now the way it is trending, the way things are going, Ghana has lost its cocoa. I'm sorry to say that Ghana, we don't even have cocoa. It is only few cocoa trees that have been left. The rest that they see that the test is there, all the cocoa trees have been sold. Very soon they will cut all down.
All right. You were about to make a second point. Just hold for me. Let me just bring in Fifi Waffle. He has a bit of an intervention, and then I'll come back to you, Nana, to proceed. Fifi Waffle, what's on your mind?
Yes, Doc made a statement, and I believe he asked for clarification before proceeding to make the statement. Maybe because of clarification did not come in, hence the conclusion Doc made. Because Doc talked about the fact that if you look at the price adjustment, that's about 40%, and then considering inflation, farmers are worse off. I wish to draw Doc's attention to the fact that the increment is about over 60%, and inflation is obviously not up to that level. So it is not possible to conclude that the new price makes the farmer worse, because the increment within the 53% is way beyond the inflationary figure in our country.
But Mr. Waffle, are you considering the fact that it may be true that inflation, though for the last 3 months or so, it's been inching up. It's in the 40s. It hit the 50s some time back. And now we're looking at 63.5% of an increment. It's not just inflation. You're talking about the cost of these farmers. They use their farm equipment, diesel. Have you checked the prices of diesel? Have you checked the prices of agricultural inputs? So obviously, it wouldn't just be on inflation.
No, Benjamin, when you look, if you want us to go into the inflation basket, that's a different conversation altogether. We can do that. I'm just saying that January inflation is not up to 63%.
Right.
So if the farmer income has increased by 63%,
right,
obviously it does not make the farmer worse off. Of course, I am not forcing Doc, because he actually asked that what are the figures, and he did not get it. And he said it was 1,200. Doc, actually 1,821. So it is not a 40%, but rather more.
Doc actually mentioned 1,800 plus. That's what he mentioned.
No, I heard 1,200, sorry. But then I'm just making the point that the increase is over 63%. And inflation is not up to 63%. Of course, if you go into the basket, things like rent and stuff like that.
Okay, Mr. Waffle, I think the point is made there. Because of time, I want us to be snip. So your point is made on that. It cannot be if inflation is 40-something% and this increment is 63.5%, then you cannot say that the farmers are worse off. Thanks for that intervention. Let me come back to Nana, and later, Doc, get ready, because when I come back to you, I would have you explain why you feel the farmers are worse off. But Nana, so you've spoken about a union, which you don't have. What then would be the plans moving forward in that regard? Or are you still going to just hope that Cocoa Board represents your interest properly? And then, to the main point of the increment, do you agree with Doc that you are actually worse off now on the back of inflation? Or does this really put you, the cocoa farmers, in a very good standing?
Thank you very much. It was a shock when I heard the price, because I was thinking that the price would even jump up to 2,500 or even 3,005. Because looking up to the international market, let us ask Cocoa Board how much is a port, the price of a port in the international market. A cocoa port costs $12.99. So if cocoa port costs $12.99, let us ask them, how many trees make a port? How many trees? We have almost 435 and 450 trees. That is an acre, right? And then a tree, you can get 50 up to 70 port on it. So just times that, and then see the kind of money that you will get as a cocoa farmer if you are supposed to sell your cocoa on your own. But now it is government, it's monopoly. It's government that have right to do all these things, and we've given that respect to that. But at the end of the day, the intervention, the welfare, and other things that cocoa farmers are supposed to get, which is constitutional, the farmers are not getting it. We have a very bad road network. Aketi, just here, Aketi, a bridge that collapsed. Ask Cocoa Board. How many years are they taking to construct that bridge? How many years are they taking to put up a very good school complex so that our children can get to a better place? Ask Cocoa Board, what are they doing to put up a better hospital within the cocoa catchment area so that at the end of the day, when our wives are in labor, they can get a better place? We have to send them to the big cities and other things, which transport is costing us. And you are talking about 1,300. I think it is peanuts. The 1,300 will not do anything. And the 1,300 will not prevent the smugglers from smuggling their cocoa.
Are you referencing the $1,821 that is, or you're referencing the 1,300 increment? That's what you're referencing.
What I'm saying is it's a peanut.
All right.
It's a peanut, yes, because the 1,300 will not do anything. The 1,300 will not do anything. Now things have increased. How much is a ball of even don't touch Lazuma Blue? And that's what we have been using.
Indulge me, Nana. Indulge me. You were getting 800 cedis per 64-kilogram bag of cocoa. Now you're getting 1,308. That is an increment of about some 200. In fact, 508 cedis. 508 cedis. Something is better than nothing, right?
Oh, this is not something is better than nothing. This is not so. Look at it. Let us check those that they are representing. Let us check their salary. Comparing. And the
are you talking of Cocoa Board?
Yes. You see, and the kind of intervention that we are supposed to get that we are not getting it. Farmers have been cheated for so long. So if you are piling up all this money for so many years and then giving a little peanut for them at this time, you've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing. Because as I'm speaking to you again, there is no cocoa in this country. Most of the cocoa, the majority has been destroyed. And now the farmers have even converted their cocoa farm to rubber plantations. Others are also doing guarantee, and they're making even more money than this 1,300 that you are talking of per bag. You see, at the time that we were doing identification of community challenges, showing the length and breadth of this country, and getting the farmers to know their problems and their challenges, ask Cocoa Board. What were they telling us? Because my brother would that even motivate us that, things will be better, so we should hold on another thing. But you see, it is not enough. My brother, it is not enough. Things are getting worse off. As I'm talking to you, Nigeria, even leading
Nigeria is not taking Nigeria. Who overtake even Ghana in terms of cocoa production because we have nothing. What we have now has been destroyed. And cocoa board don't have any power to control the cocoa tree that is being destroyed. It's not about the price. They are destroying the trees. Now we don't even have the cocoa. Where is the cocoa? Where is the cocoa? You've left out for them to destroy our cocoa. Go to the Ochema and see what is happening. This very morning, send up a drone to our forest and then Kwabi area and see how the miners have excavated, destroying the cocoa within the place. It is very sad that we live in a country that the backbone of our economy, it is not a priority to the country.
Oh, all right. So for you,
my brother, it is very sad. The 1,300 is not acceptable. Well, they've announced it. Others will go in for it. Fine. But then I just want to tell people that things are happening. There are real things that has been happening. They are not on the ground.
All right.
Getting to report another thing, that report might be fake. We have the real and authentic report that there is not single cocoa in this country.
Right. There's no cocoa in this country, and you're saying you have the report. Just before I go back to Fifi Waffle, Doc, I'll bring you in. Dr. Theo Champong, just hold for me. Before I go back to Fifi, Nana, just clarify for me. Just give me a straightforward answer. So you are saying that with the prices and everything that is happening, and you referred to what those at Cocoa Board are earning as salary, those at the top, do you feel ripped off?
We feel being betrayed, and we feel being. What we need is they should give us a free trade. Let us sell our own cocoa. Because looking at selling your own cocoa, you will make more money than somebody being a middleman to sell it for you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Let me bring in Fifi Waffle. Fifi also has to attend to other matters. Fifi Waffle, you've heard what Nana has said. He also makes mention of the point, which in some respect is true if you follow the trajectory of Nigeria and, of course, burgeoning population so they can produce more. The threat of other countries overtaking Ghana. There's the galamsey bit, many farmers selling to galamseyers, some converting to rubber plantations and all of that. But I don't know, Fifi, whether it was you I heard over the weekend or so, talking about the fact that indeed the amount of cocoa we used to get on a weekly basis has dwindled by quite a lot. I don't know whether that was you or Nana or someone else I heard. How do you respond to these concerns?
Well, thanks again. I think Nana has said quite a number of things. Sometimes I admire the person, but he has to moderate the person, the fact, in order to get this conversation on track. Because talking about Cocoa Board staff and how much they earn, I do not think that in the period of even 10 years, Cocoa Board staff has seen 53% increment in their salary. So if you use it as a basis for your argument, clearly you are getting it wrong. He's talking about the farmer and the representative.
But Fifi, I don't think you should go there because it's relative. That conversation is very relative.
I am just making the point that even in 10 years, Cocoa Board staff will not see 63% increment. It is a tangential issue which is not necessary for this conversation. That's what I want to do attention. That's what I want to focus on at this point. But let me get back to it. He talks about the fact that he has an association and he believes that he must be on the table and determine the price. We have an association in this country that represents the cocoa farmers across the country, with a majority of cocoa farmers being members of that association, who were part of the Producer Price Review Committee in determining the price. National Cocoa Farmers Award Winners Association. They represent people who have won awards in the cocoa industry over the years. They are part of the people who take the decision. So if you say that you have an association, and because of that, because the process you are not on the table, it means that farmers are not represented, and something is being pushed down the throat of farmers. Please, it is not fair, and it's not a way to go. But back to the point that, well, you don't have APC, you don't have this, you don't have this. Cocoa Board can only do how much resources available to Cocoa Board to address some of these concerns. So if you say roads, port hospital, cost of living, all these things, in relation to what? How much does Cocoa Board have available to be able to perform every single thing? Don't forget that Cocoa Board has a responsibility and a mandate He was talking about the fact that a pod of cocoa is how much. I'm wondering which package that he sells a pod of cocoa and how much he's able to sell that. But in terms of what is happening, just do a juxtaposition of other businesses we have in our country and ask yourself, how much increment are other industries seeing compared to the farmers? I'm not saying that the farmers do not deserve what they are getting. They do deserve it, and with the opportunity, should earn even more. But when you are making these comparisons, you should also look at the facts available and have meaningful conversations around it.
Okay, there are some angles you've not answered. I know you have to take leave of us, so let me just lump them together and you answer, and then we can call it a conversation with you. Mention is made of the fact that he says, quoting Nana, he says, there's no cocoa in Ghana. Well, he may not mean that the trees are all gone and we are not producing, but he's basically saying production has dwindled, or the number of farmers and all of that. I was referencing someone over the weekend who was saying that there had been a huge drop in production, the stock that you take every week at Cocoa Board or every month. I'd also like to find out from you, this new pricing, do you feel it's going to stem the tide of smuggling cocoa to neighboring Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and all of that?
Well, the issue about non-existence of cocoa in our country obviously is not a case.
I've put it into context for you.
Well, I'm addressing that. The point you made of reduction in terms of the volume to where it was largely due to the expectation that we're going to see a price increase. I think it was widely speculated. So the licensed buying companies, when they buy it from the cocoa farmers, they decide to keep it and wait for the new price and sell. So definitely it won't affect how much cocoa we're taking in at the latter part of the season. We admit that there's been some huge smuggling that has happened. And it was largely because, if you realize, at the time we increased the cocoa price in October last year, between October to December, that is when we saw the high depreciation of the cedi. And that is what affected how much value the farmer was getting, and it influenced cocoa crossing the border. This time round, we are not having that challenge we had last year. The cedi has remained stable relatively. And we have also had conversations before announcing the price, and we do not see anything significant that will facilitate the cocoa being smuggled to our neighboring countries. And we believe that this new price will address that concern we are all talking about at this point.
Mr. Waffle, thank you very much for having joined the conversation. He is Public Affairs Director at Ghana Cocoa Board, or Cocoa Board, as we usually call them. Let me bring in Dr. Theo Champong. So just to clarify the figure that you put out initially, I heard you talk about, I think something upward of, was it 1,300, you said, because Fifi Waffle took you on that. And then what your reaction is to Nana saying that they are actually worse off. There is a very turbulent, tricky situation that they have to go through now.
Yes, so let me start with the figures. Fifi is very right. So I was actually confusing the amount per bag and the amount per ton in my earlier submission. Hence why I actually predicated that with if my numbers are right. But I've actually checked the numbers now. So
you were mentioning 1,800 at first, right?
Yes. So currently on a bag basis, let's work with the cedis.
Right.
We can convert to dollars, right? So on a cedi basis, per ton is 20,943 cedis, and that's roughly $1,800 thereabouts.
Right.
So if you assume that the price of cocoa that the Cocoa Board forward sold to the respective buyers, and Fifi gave us a price of $2,600, then in relative terms, what the farmer is getting is about 71% of that price, which is being passed on to them. And I think that's positive and something that is commendable in that regard. What I started off earlier with was using the CD equivalent per bag to do the calculation, but actually when you use the new numbers per ton and you do the conversion into dollars, it works out about the same as Fifi is saying. But that does not negate the fact that there are other issues that are affecting farmers. And it's not just with this current price or crop season. You have to go back a couple of years to look at issues of the farm productivity, issues of the smuggling and the galamsey and things that we're talking about. And then fundamentally ask yourself, even with this major price, adjustment or increment, would it possibly stem smuggling or galamsey or people converting their cocoa farm into, rubber plantations and things like that? I think the evidence on that is mixed. And we may not necessarily see a stem of that type in that regard. And then on the point about, again, the farmers and the impact on their livelihoods, if you do the analysis and you look at the input cost that goes into the production of the cocoa and all of that, yes, a 63% price increment is commendable. You're passing almost 70% of the price to the farmer. But if you relate that to how much they're spending to produce the crop and to nurture the crop and all of that over various number of years, you will still see that relatively they are still poor in that regard. And there's lots of empirical evidence around that support the point that I am making in that regard. And so it leads then to a third point, which is, okay, if the farmers are getting 70% and Cocoa Board and others are getting 30% of the price, is it fair, like the farmer union person is saying? And so from a policy point of view, should we push for a policy that, for example, passes as much as maybe 85% of the price to the farmer, and then subsequently get Cocoa Board and others, to retain, 10-15% for their operational purposes? Those are the sort of policy considerations that I think are important. The second policy consideration also is at the level of Cocoa Board itself. We know that the cocoa is forward sold, so it's not like you're buying it on the spot market, like Fifi was saying. But given the way the market has been behaving and the dynamics, perhaps is it time that we think about maybe a mixed strategy that allows us to sell part of that to the market forward sale and then others on the spot market to maximize the potential revenue that Cocoa Board gets and ultimately passes it on to the farmers. Those, I think, are really like the important consideration.
Doc, I'll let go of you shortly. I know you also have to knock off, but I'm posing this question to both of you, so I'll let you answer first, and then I'll cap it off with you. Our cocoa production has been at risk over the last few years. There's been a lot of talk, lots of concerns, some of which we've mentioned: galamsey, rubber plantations, people moving away from cocoa production for these. But the president hints in TEPA that the cocoa industry is witnessing unprecedented transformation under his administration, with the introduction of the productivity enhancement interventions that have positively impacted the sector. Quoting him, he says, the transformational projects are having positive impact on productivity, incomes, and climate resilience. What do you make of this, to cap off the conversation from your end? Is the president being overly optimistic, or is he suggesting that more has been done than actually has been done?
So there are a number of interventions that have happened in the sector. In fact, we're involved in doing some work currently where we're interviewing farmers in various regions of the country. And when you look at some of the responses that are coming through, and then also subsequently you look at the published literature, there are serious issues of productivity and the farms being overaged, and we've talked about galamsey and things like that. So the interventions that are going in to address those issues, typically you tend to have a lag, and you could have as much as 3 to 5 year lag between when you make an intervention and then when it begins to show in terms of your cocoa yield and the farms being much more healthier and all of that. So I see where the president is coming from, but I think when you look at the data, perhaps it's early days yet to be making those assertions and claims. But definitely what one cannot sort of deny is the fact that there have been some interventions in the sector to try and address these productivity issues and try and even improve, the welfare and the well-being of the farmers. But it takes time to actually see that now coming through into the data on cocoa harvest or production and eventually the sales.
Dr. Theo Champong, thank you so much for engaging us this morning. I will wish you the best of the day. Let me wrap up with Nana. So having listened to the conversation, the responses from Fifi Waffle and all the dynamics, what would be your parting comments? And again, do you agree with Mr. President when he says that his government has implemented quite a number of transformational projects that are having a positive impact on productivity, incomes, and climate resilience? What's your reaction?
With what the president said, if the president has any thanksgiving to give, he has to thank Dr. Fiat for saving the situation. Because as for cocoa, they did nothing. I know what I'm talking about. When the farmers were in serious crisis, destruction was in the peak. Cocoa turned their back to the farmers. When they were using dirt and other things, chasing us, beating us, destroying the state crop, which now others are benefiting. Because of that, others have some pedigree to live. So what were they? Nothing. So the president don't have to take the credit and then give the credit to Cocoa Board and other things. This is a photo that did most of the job. Fine, let me come back to the question. What is happening now within the cocoa industry? It is very alarming. I'll be very happy that we send the reporters across the various cocoa growing areas for them to speak to the cocoa farmers themselves and see what is happening. New price, fine. But at the end of the day, where is the cocoa? Where is the cocoa? If you know you are going to come out with a new price like this, why is it that you will not get to the farmers and then talk to the farmers? If they were giving out their cocoa trees for this galamsey and other things, it is we, the concerned farmers, that went to the various farming communities, engaging these farmers, telling them that no, they're not the cocoa have, how do you call it, a surprise for us. So at the end of the day, we need to keep our cocoa. We did all these things on our own way, with our own resources and everything. Cocoa Board did nothing about it. There are series of reports that we have even given to Cocoa Board, which they've never even mind us, telling us that it is an economic situation. A farmer can choose to destroy cocoa and plant rubber or do any other things with it. So as I'm speaking now, with the price will not change anything. With the price will not change those that you are smuggling the things, not to smuggle it. Because at the end of the day, when we told them that they were smuggling cocoa, they said nothing. There was nothing like smuggling. Look at it. And as I'm speaking to you, there was nothing. There was no cocoa. If they think there was cocoa, they should forget it. Because most of the trees that they say, only 3% of cocoa, the percentage that the government will get will not even get half of it. Unless maybe they buy it from foreign countries and they will come and add up to it, what we have here. Because one, Western North, it has left with only few. And even that tree that was left, if it's not the young man that was there, that also worked very hard to protect that tree. Like that tree will also go down. So at the end of the day, it is not about the pricing that will be increasing, but then the welfare of the farmers. You see, they are not fighting for the farmers. They are just there about pricing and some other things that we think it is not important to us. We are doing the job for the state. It is not Cocoa Board.
They are regulated, but at the end of the day, they do things on their own without even we knowing it. That is the problem. And I'm speaking to you, a lot of things is happening. We don't even have a good school for our place. That they are cutting down the cocoa rows. There's no good hospital on our side. And when we take our children to the farm, they said it's a child labor. But when a doctor or engineer takes his son to the western, that one is best child labor. So what we are looking at, they should look at the welfare side, which is constitutional. They should look at that side so that at the end of the day, the farmers will be better off. To encourage the young people also to do what? To get into the cocoa production. Other than that, then they should forget at all. Because what? Most of the fertile land that is there for the government of Ghana, for the president to be very bold enough to be in helicopter to move around the place to tell the people to stop. They put wax in their ears thinking that they've not seen anything. We send a series of reports to them, including even the presidency. The presidency put wax in their ears, watch the state property to be destroyed. Now you're talking about 1,300. For what? Is that what we need? Is that what we need as farmers? No. It is gone.
Right. We'll have to, sew up the conversation here, but it's understandable how passionate you are about these matters. We'll save some for another day. Thank you, Nana, for joining the conversation. You just heard Farmer General Obuadie Nana Boateng Botsu, President, Concerned Farmers Association, and he is saying this is basically a drop in the bucket. It's not what they would have expected, contrary to what we also saw in Tepa, where farmers were jubilating. So which is which? There's been a lot of talk, but there are real dynamics beyond that scene. We were also joined by Dr. Theo Champong, a political risk and analyst, and then Fifi Waffle, Public Affairs Director at the Ghana Cocoa Board. We still have a number of conversations yet to come on the show. The IGP and his showing up before that commission, that parliamentary probe committee, if you like, on Tuesday. We're also going to be talking about that explosion in the Shama area in the Western region. But up next, we'll be having a conversation with concerning the Habitat Fair. That conversation will be up next with Elegant Homes. But before we take that break, no matter your water needs, Syntex Tank has it all. Syntex Tank is the first to introduce double layer tanks, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Just tell them and they'll make it for you. Syntex Tank is the first to introduce white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and now they're introducing to you the customer specs order, which lets you order any color and size of your preference. So Syntex Tank is giving you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank company in Ghana is giving you. So whatever your water consumption, size of project, or demands, choose Syntex Tank. We have agents nationwide as well. You can reach us on 0244 335 168 or shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex Tank, a strong Syntex Tank, a tough. Stay with us because we're talking tough up next when it comes to the Habitat Fair and what you should be doing.